Wir schaffen das, we'll manage. Angela Merkel repeated her mantra on the refugee crisis today in response to recent attacks in Germany. Merkel was speaking after an axe rampage, a shooting spree, a knife attack, and a suicide bombing that stunned Germany. 3 of the 4 attackers were asylum seekers, and 2 of the assaults in Würzburg and Ansbach were claimed by the so-called Islamic State group. In her comments today, the Chancellor defended her open-door policy, pledging that Germany will remain open to refugees, but also do everything humanly possible to ensure security.
It doesn't seem like she's under pressure, but Chancellor Merkel must respond to the attacks that have taken place in Germany over the course of just a few days. 2 of the attacks, including a suicide bombing in the town of Ansbach, committed by a man denied asylum, probably had a terrorist background. The perpetrators mentioned IS. The Chancellor says she is taking this threat very seriously. That 2 men who came to us as refugees are responsible for the incidents in Würzburg and Ansbach mocks the country that took them in. It doesn't matter if they came with the many other refugees, whether before or after September last year. She spoke of a new threat from perpetrators who have yet to be detected, but maintained that the government can cope. The top priority is to make up for deficits as we have always done, so that it's clear that we do all that's humanly possible to guarantee safety in our free, democratic state that adheres to the rule of law. That includes closer international cooperation. I spoke about this yesterday with the American President Barack Obama. We will increase cooperation with allied agencies in order to speed up clarification and to be able to analyze the communication behaviors of such perpetrators. It's long been clear that there may also be potential attackers among the many refugees who have come to Germany and Europe. Now Germany has experienced that firsthand, but Merkel maintains that we can do it. I'm just as convinced today as I was back then that we can fulfill our historical duty. And this is a historical testing period in the age of globalization that must be fulfilled. But Chancellor Merkel made it clear that she expects more help from within the European Union.
Well, there have been mixed reactions on Twitter to Merkel's address. Let's take a look now at some of the responses. From this user, Merkel talks a lot but gives no real solutions or takes responsibility. It's always the same old story. Another person tweeted, Merkel is like a stubborn child who doesn't want to admit their own mistakes. She's only plunged our country into terror. Others felt the need for a reality check. This user wrote, those who expected an emotive speech by Merkel were mistaken. This is Merkel as usual, fact-based and calculated. But some praise as well. She will always have my support, wrote this user. You can find more analysis of Merkel's speech on our website. That's dw.com. And why not join in the conversation on Twitter, either at DW News or tweet at me at SarahHarmon53. Don't forget to use our hashtag, the day. Well, here to talk with us more about that is our political correspondent, Naomi Conrad. Naomi, we saw a range of views represented there on social media. What is your take on the public mood in Germany? Is opinion turning against the Chancellor?
We don't actually know yet. We're still waiting for the newest polls. It's quite likely that public opinion may turn against her. We don't really know, but we saw a huge drop in public opinion right after the refugee crisis. It actually improved a little bit in the last couple of months because the numbers of refugees coming into Germany dropped significantly. So it is likely that it will have an impact, but we just don't know yet. We're waiting for the newest polls to come out.
Germany's seen the rise in recent months of right-wing anti-immigration groups like Pegida and parties like AfD. These attacks seem likely to play right into their narrative that immigration is bad for Germany.
Yes, of course they do. And these parties, AfD and leaders of Pegida too, have been using these attacks. We've heard some very virulently anti-refugee, anti-Muslim comments coming from those parties, from those leaders. And I think they'll try to capitalize as much as they can on this. particularly because we have federal elections coming up and also state elections in September. So I think we'll see the debate heating up a lot in the next couple of weeks.
Concretely, what effect do you think this is going to have on those state elections in September?
Well, I think it's very likely that they'll boost the AfD. It obviously depends a lot on whether people believe that Merkel has done enough, is doing enough to keep Germany safe. I mean, we've seen her introduce a whole raft of measures, so she's obviously doing something, although a lot of these measures have been in the pipeline for quite a while. But so I think it really depends on whether people believe that Merkel is handling the situation. She's been a hugely popular politician over the last couple of years. That's why she's been in power for so long, after all. So it really depends on whether people believe that she can deal with the situation, that she continue to do it, as she said.
You mentioned these measures. She announced a 9-point plan today to improve security. Walk us through some of the most important points in this plan.
Right, so these are measures that a lot of them have already been, as I said, in the pipeline for quite a while. It's a whole raft of measures, including speeding up deportations of asylum seekers, which we've already seen in the past. But she specifically mentioned Afghanistan here. It's obviously a very controversial issue, the topic of whether Afghanistan will be declared a classified a country of safe origin. Then also, as to be expected, she was talking about boosting security, more personnel for police, an increased cooperation among Germany's security services, and she mentioned specifically American security services, which is also obviously, given the history of NSA spying on Merkel and Germany, quite controversial. So a wide range of issues, really.
In the wake of recent attacks in France, the French government began stationing soldiers in public places. Is there any discussion of a similar reaction here, especially in light of some of the big upcoming events like the Oktoberfest in Munich?
Well, the Oktoberfest specifically, we don't really know yet. There was a press conference today. We're likely to see more security checks. We're likely to see bags being checked of people wanting to enter the Oktoberfest. But I don't think we'll see the deployment of soldiers, because that's highly controversial in Germany. It's obviously, given Germany's history, a very sensitive topic. There's been a huge debate in Germany about the possibility of deploying the army. A lot of opposition from the SPD, the Social Democratic Coalition partner. I don't think we'll see that. I mean, there's now been talk of deploying the army in situations of terrorist attacks or national catastrophes, which is it does signal a political change, but it's not a major paradigm shift.
All right. Our political correspondent, Naomi Conrad, in the studio with me. Thanks so much for your analysis. Well, as we heard, the tense security situation in Germany comes after a series of attacks, including the country's first suicide bombing. 15 people were injured in the Bavarian town of Ansbach when a failed asylum seeker blew himself up outside a concert. Now, authorities say he may not have acted alone. Investigators say the 27-year-old Syrian was in contact via smartphone with someone in the Middle East shortly before the attack. They're now trying to establish who that person was. And more details are coming to light about the time that this man spent in Bulgaria. That's the country where he'd been granted asylum before coming to Germany. On Thursday, footage emerged of 2 interviews he gave with Bulgarian television while he was living there. Well, joining us now is a therapist who treated the Ansbach attacker, Axel van Maltitz. Axel van Maltitz, thank you for being on our program. How often did you work with this man?
I worked 40 sessions, one session 90 minutes, but there is an interpreter always, so every word that is spoken is 2 times, so it takes a little more time.
I understand, so it takes some time to get through it with an interpreter. Did he ever give you any indication that he was planning an attack?
Yes and no. He promised to take gasoline, a bottle of gasoline, go to a Bundesamt and pour the gasoline over himself and burn himself. That was what he predicted in the case of that he was deported to Bulgaria.
So he was promising self-immolation.
Yes, that was a suicide attack. He promised always in the case of being deported. That now, he did before I got him.
He was denied asylum in Germany. He was meant to be deported to Bulgaria, but his deportation was delayed due to his mental health. Was he mentally ill?
Yes. Sure, yes.
In what
He
way?
was tortured. He was really awfully tortured in 3 periods of being imprisoned in Syria and also once more in Bulgaria, so that he suffered from a very severe post-traumatic stress and of depression.
Now, the picture that's been painted of him in the German press is that of a disturbed young man who had twice attempted suicide, and yet we know that he pledged allegiance to the Islamic State in a video shortly before the attack. Did you know him to have radical views?
I spoke a lot with him, and I spoke mostly about the time when he was in Syria, and there he made out of himself a reporter of all the human rights
Infractions.
offers. Yes, of Assad. Assad was his enemy, the Assad regime, because they tortured him. They tortured him because he was parking with his car once wrong, and they put him to 1.5 months in prison, beating and torturing him just because of that. So he was fighting against Assad. Later, after he was coming free from the prison, then he went into the free part of Syria, making pictures. He did that for 2.5 years, making photos of all the victims of the bombings. So the children and the destroyed houses and all of that. He went every place when there was a bomb and explosion and making pictures. And those pictures, then he sent all around the world.
So he was very in tune to the injustices.
He had contact with many medias.
He had a lot of media contact. Were you personally surprised when you heard what happened?
Yes, I was shocked. You must also see, I had contact with him. I was talking with him for quite a long time, and all of a sudden he is dead. And also, of course, I was shocked that in the way he did it.
Why? Have we still got you there? Axel von Meltitz, can you hear me?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we've got a problem with the connection there. We'll try and bring you back up. We'd ask our viewers just to bear with us for a moment while we try to restore the connection. Axel von Meltitz, he is a therapist who treated the Ansbach attacker. Axel, are you still there? It looks like we've lost the connection, unfortunately. All right, Axel von Meltitz, we apologize for losing the connection to our viewers. He was a therapist who treated the Ansbach attacker. We were very pleased to have him in the show to hear about his work on behalf of a pro bono organization that treats refugees. It looks like the connection has come back. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the work that your organization does. How did you come into contact with the Ansbach attacker?
Well, we are human rights defenders here. We do trauma therapy with all those people who have post-traumatic stress that are all only refugees. And there is my wife, she is doing the social work that is just helping everyday needs of translation, of transport, of helping to the offices and filling forms and all those things. That we are a help organization for refugees here and specialized for the victims of torture. In the moment, we have one EU project that is for victims of torture to make treatment with them. That is a special treatment for traumatization. And the rest of the organization is just that everyday help.
And you treat many refugees throughout your work. In your estimation, how many other young men like the Ansbach attacker are out there?
I have hundreds of clients. When I look back into the last 20 years I had a lot of treatments with child soldiers from Sierra Leone or from Ivory Coast. So that is a lot of work we did already. But it's the first suicide attacker I had or I've seen.
Axel van Maltitz, he is with the organization Exilio e Fal. You can find more about that on their website. Axel, thank you for being with us today.